again, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm Anna Ermakova. And here we are in the archaeological preserve Chersonesus of Taurica. Ancient Greeks came to the Crimean coast in the 6th century BC, and one of the very first Greek trade ports appeared on the coast of that little harbor that we still call Quarantine Harbor or Quarantine Bay. And later, here to the Crimea, ancient Romans came, but it happened at the very beginning of AD. And more later, Crimea became part of Byzantine Empire with the capital in Constantinople. And now we can see one of the very first constructions here in Chersonesus, defensive walls, because Greeks had to protect themselves from local Crimean population, from two tribes that lived here, the tribe of Tauris and Scythian tribe. And it's considered that the first defensive wall was finished by the 4th century BC. And this is ancient theater. Ancient Greeks built the theater approximately in the 4th and the 3rd centuries AD, and in Greek period different performances were arranged here. Tragedies, comedies, and what is interesting, only men were the actors in ancient Greek theaters. But when Romans came to the Crimea, at first they just closed the theater, but very soon everybody understood that they decided to make it a little bit bigger. But instead of performances, wild animals huntings and gladiators fightings happened on the same place. But in the early Middle Ages, when Christianity came to Crimea, ancient theater was destroyed, and on that very spot, on the place of the former theater, one of the very first basilicas built in a cruciform basilica was built on the place of the theater, and the remains of that basilica you can see a little bit to the right. In Crimea we have very many evergreen plants, and one of the most popular is the cypress that you can see here. And you know, we still say a lot of thanks to ancient Greeks, because Greeks brought cypress to the Crimea from Greece, and it happened in the 6th century BC. But nowadays we can't imagine our peninsula without this wonderful tree. And one of the biggest churches, Orthodox churches in the Crimea. I have to say that absolutely all churches that one can see in Crimea belong to Russian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate. And this church is not very old one. Initially, the church on that very place was erected in the second half of the 19th century, because it was decided to build a big cathedral on a very holy place, the place where, in the 10th century AD, Prince Vladimir of Kievan Rus was baptized. But during the Second World War, the church was almost completely destroyed, and only at the very end of the 1990s it was decided to rebuild it. And the constructive works started from the very, very beginning, and it was finished at the very beginning of 2000. Nowadays it is another symbol of Chersonesus, and of course from political point of view, the church is located on a very important place, because from here, from Chersonesus, from Crimea, from the Black Sea coast, Christianity started to spread all over Kievan Rus and later Russia. And now we are on the viewpoint. You can't imagine what a wonderful view is in front of me. But very soon you will have opportunity to look another direction. And from here, rather big area of excavation you will have a chance to observe. And now you have opportunity to admire this wonderful view and the remains of basilica by the sea. And if you can see behind the basilica, on the cliffs, on the stones just above the seawater, snow. Not so often it happens when in Crimea we enjoy snow, but today one of such days. And from here we can see the northern area of Chersonesus excavations. And this is one of my favorite places in Chersonesus. And we are in basilica, but of course you understand we see the remains of medieval basilica. But in Roman times, on that very place, a mausoleum was located, and in that mausoleum Romans used to bury the most famous citizens of the city, and they buried them in a big marble sarcophagus. But when Christianity arrived to Crimea, and when Christianity became the only official and state religion here, of course pagan mausoleum, in spite of all facts, was destroyed. But that Roman marble still preserves, and now you can see that this marble decorates the floor in the basilica. White marble columns. But you know, they were not produced here. They were delivered from the Mediterranean coast. Because in the Crimean soil we don't have huge pieces of marble, just very small stones. And it's impossible to produce anything from local marble. But, ladies and gentlemen, behind the columns now you can see our Black Sea. It's so warm and pleasant in summertime, and it is so friendly. But do you know, why is the sea called like that, the Black Sea? Once again, you will have a chance to think a little bit before you arrive to Crimea, and when you come, I will tell you the secret. And this is, now I am under another symbol of Chersonesus, the bell. Sometimes we call it the foggy bell. And you know, during the Crimean War, French positions were not so far from these excavations. And French soldiers took this bell as a trophy to Paris after the end of the Crimean War. And French government decided to return this bell back to Russia only in 1913. But during rather long journey from France back to Crimea, the bell got a crack. And it was decided to make a new bell from absolutely the same material, and it was decided to erect it right here between these two pillars, and nowadays it is just the symbol. But during its stay in France, the bell was on the bell tower of Notre Dame de Paris, and it was used on purpose. And look what a nice view, the arch and the church ahead. And you know, local archaeologists and historians suppose that probably in the house with this arch the family lived, and they had a horse, and the arch was made especially for the horse to give the animal the opportunity to get into the yard.